ladies and gentlemen. Once again, as always, Miguel Magallon! And as always, President, Founder, CEO of Magallon Entertainment! Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the podcast this evening. Welcome back to the podcast. No music tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going straight to the motherfucking point tonight. Tonight, I'm going to talk about interest rates. I'm going to talk about the Federal Reserve. I'm going to talk about mortgage rates. I'm going to talk about real estate, the housing market, what's going on in the crypto market, what's happening with Bitcoin, what's going to happen to the unemployment rate in this country, and we're going to talk about our motherfucking portfolios. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are locked and loaded. Tonight we are prepared, and tonight we have our fingers on the motherfucking triggers. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, when I'm about to teach you some shit, when I'm about to educate you on shit, when I'm about to drop some knowledge in this bitch, you already know what to do on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, get the pen in the pads, get the pen in the pads, get the pens and the motherfucking pads. And let me begin teaching this evening. All right, so jam-packed, busy week. As I mentioned before, it's been very chaotic. Just a lot of work here at Magallon Entertainment. Been getting flooded with emails and voicemails and text messages every single week. It has just been, a very chaotic and just, flooded week with a lot of research and work and, just a lot of stuff, a lot of noise in the background. Just got to take care of all of that. And, like I always tell you guys, every single night I go to sleep, I wake up, I have like 146, 155, sometimes 180, 190 voicemails to listen to in the morning. Then I wake up every morning to anywhere between 700 to 1,500 text messages by the time I wake up in the morning. I got another 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 fucking emails I got to read every fucking morning. I mean, there's a lot of clients here whose portfolios I manage. There's, almost 5,000 VIP subscribers strong across the country and in different continents right now. And, almost 200,000 subscribers worldwide, nationwide, listening to this podcast every single night. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of phone calls. It's a lot of text messages. It's a lot of voicemails. It's a lot of emails. It's a lot of, business meetings. It is a lot of fucking work to do what I do on this podcast. But with that being said, I enjoy what I do. I love what I do. And I'm really living what I want to do, not just as a portfolio manager, not just as a podcaster here, putting out clips every single night, every single week here at Magallon Entertainment, but just as someone that you guys can listen to, so you guys can drown out all that noise and all that bullshit in your life, and listen to someone that's just going to tell you the numbers, speak to you about the facts, and then give you guys my opinion and my perspective on what's happening, not just, in the country, but around the world, and what's going to happen, in this economy, and what's going to happen with all these asset prices, and, how you guys can stack your portfolios and accumulate, assets and investments in your portfolio. So one day you guys can have enough money in your portfolios so you guys can retire early and do what the fuck you want to do, when the fuck you want to do it. Because your portfolio works for you now. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for listening to me every night. Thank you guys for, promoting the podcast every single night. And thank you guys for recommending, this podcast to all your friends and all your family and all your coworkers and all your neighbors and all your baby mamas and whoever else, in your life, and telling people that they need to listen to this shit. Because the general is always going to teach you some shit. So I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. I deeply appreciate the undying loyalty. I appreciate all your guys' commitment, your focus, and your dedication to, not just, depositing money in your portfolios, but stacking assets and investments in your portfolios, and being dedicated, committed, and focused to the long-term mission, which is to make enough money so you guys can quit your 9-to-5 job and stop working for that bitch-ass supervisor, stop working at that stupid-ass company, and be able to live your own life and do what the fuck you want to do when you want to do it with your life, and not have to be a slave in this system anymore, working paycheck to paycheck to the day you die. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for listening to me. Thank you guys for believing in me. And thank you guys for fucking riding with me. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it. We have the Federal Reserve doing another interest rate hike this week. And as I said on the email, once again, the dumbasses at the Federal Reserve, the people with all the money, the people with all the power, the gringos with all the dinero, the pinche babosos over there at the Federal Reserve, these dumbasses, once again, once more, are going to raise interest rates again. Another 25 basis points. So, let me tell you guys what I think is going to happen this week. Then I'm going to tell you guys what I think is going to happen over the summer. And then I'm going to give you guys my semi-long-term outlook and what my opinion and perspective on not just the economy, but the stock market and the global economy at large is for the next year, year and a half. And then how I think that ultimately impacts the long term, which is the next 5 to 10 years, which is what many of you listening to me tonight are focused on anyways, because the vast majority of you guys who listen to me every day know that you're probably not going to become a millionaire anytime soon. So most of your guys' timelines is 5 to 10 years from now anyways. And so what the Federal Reserve is doing today and what the economies are likely to do, in the coming months is going to impact the long term in the grand scheme of things, again, 5 to 10 years from now. So I'm going to give you the short term, the medium term, the semi-long term, and the really long term. And I'm going to give you guys my perspective and outlook on all of this. So let me begin with the short term, what I think is going to happen in the immediate future, what I think is going to happen in the stock market this week, what I think is going to happen with interest rates this week, and what I think investors are looking for and keeping an eye out on this week. So we have the FOMC meeting and the Fed press conference. As always, that's going to be on Wednesday. I believe that's May 3rd. Yes, that's correct. May 3rd. Jay Powell, leader of the Federal Reserve, leader of the free world, and leader of the interest rate hikes here. He's going to come out on his Fed press conference on Wednesday. I believe that's going to be around, I want to say that's probably going to be around 11 a.m. West Coast time here in America. So somewhere around then. I forgot the actual time. It's always like an hour or two before the stock market closes. And he's going to come out in the early afternoon because I think the Fed press conferences are always done out there on the East Coast, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I think they're on East Coast time. So if you're on the West Coast time like I am here in the U.S., it's probably going to be around like 11 to 12 p.m. And he's going to come out and he's going to announce as a stock market and all stock market participants and all the analysts, all the economists, all the fucking gurus are predicting he's going to raise interest rates another 25 basis points this week. And I don't think that's going to matter. I don't think the economists care. I don't think the bulls care. I don't think the bears care. I don't think the stock market cares. I don't think the bond market cares. I don't think crypto cares. I don't think investors care. And I don't think the stupid people who spend all their money maxing out credit cards and emptying their savings account to have as much fun as they can this summer, I don't think they care. I think the only thing that matters this week is the Fed presser, the Fed press conference. And I think the only thing that matters is Jay Powell's behavior, his manner, and his tone, specifically his tone. Because what's going to happen is after they raise basis points after they raise interest rates another 25 basis points this week, he's going to get on stage and he's going to do his usual Q&A. And during this Q&A, this is a time for all of the analysts and economists and, all the reporters and the media and all these different outlooks from CNN to Fox Business to the Wall Street Journal to CNBC, MSNBC, every fucking ABC, you know what I mean? The New York Times, New York Post, all the media outlets are going to be there, asking him questions. And all of these reporters are going to ask him the same fucking question. What is your outlook for interest rates beyond this week? Has the Federal Reserve considered doing a pause anytime soon? And if so, have you guys discussed at all a potential rate cut anytime soon? Otherwise known as the fucking pivot. And I think everyone really just wants to know, how many more interest rate hikes does the Fed believe that they need to do in order to kill inflation, specifically core inflation? And I'll get to this in a minute. But they're going to ask them, like, is this going to be the last interest rate increase? Is there going to be one more, maybe two more? Is it going to be raise one more time and then pause, which the bulls have been saying was going to happen back in February, back in March, back in April? Like, the bulls have been, like, begging for a pause for, like, weeks, if not months now, since the beginning of the year. They kept saying the Fed's going to pause any minute now, and it still hasn't fucking happened. And it feels like they just keep moving the goalposts further and further and further, so that way they're never wrong about this. But the point is, that's what everyone wants to know. That's the big question. When is the Fed going to pause? And when are they going to pivot? When are they going to start doing rate cuts? How many more rate hikes are really necessary to tame and kill inflation? And when the Fed says that we're going to stay higher for longer, do you really mean it? Or are you just saying that because you don't want inflation to start ramping up again? Is this all talk, no bark? Or is this all bark, no bite? Is this all talk, just bark, right? Or are you really serious about this? Because again, most professional investors pay attention to this thing called the bond market. And the bond market historically has always been smarter than the stock market. The bond market, again, which is what, the smart people use, is screaming, literally screaming, that the Fed not only will pivot soon, but that they need to pivot soon. Because the bond market, which again is always smarter than the stock market, the bond market is basically looking and analyzing all of these leading indicators in the economy, which we've been talking about for weeks and weeks now. And every single leading economic indicator in basically economic history is literally flashing red right now and screaming to the Federal Reserve that a recession is imminent. And that the longer the Fed takes to not only pause, but start to pivot and start to, do rate cuts and lower, interest rates soon, the longer they take to realize this, the longer they take to do this, the longer the recession will last, and the more severe it will become. So once again, there's probably over 300 leading economic indicators in U.S. history. Some of them are more accurate than others. All 300 of them are flashing red. All 300 of them are literally fucking screaming and begging for the Federal Reserve to start to lower interest rates soon. They're begging them to pause imminently. They're begging them to fucking pivot immediately. But the Fed don't want to hear this. Why? Why is the Federal Reserve, the people who are supposed to be the smartest economists on earth, you're like the smartest people with finances and money in the world, why are they ignoring every single leading economic indicator in economic history? Why are they just fucking flagrantly just dismissing it? Easy. They're not dismissing it. What they're doing is doing what they told you that they were going to do from the beginning. And that is kill inflation by any and all means necessary. Which again goes back to April of 2022 when I told all you bitch ass motherfuckers over and over and over again that I was not only becoming a bear, but the general was becoming a mega bear. Not just in the economy, not just when it comes to the stock market, but when it comes to the average fucking American. Because back in April of 2022, for the fucking 1 trillionth time, I said it then and I'll say it again. They came out in that presser in April of 2022 and they literally asked him to his fucking face, Jay Powell, are you willing to risk sending the U.S. economy into a recession in the name of killing inflation? And Jay Powell looked at the world with a straight fucking face and said yes. Because it is our opinion that for the average consumer, the average American, inflation is worse than a recession. And at that time, people were like, hold on, what? You're really willing to destroy this economy just to help the poor people when it comes to inflation, even though a recession would kill them too? And Jay Powell said yes. Because a short-term recession is worth it to kill inflation. Because if we don't kill inflation, then it'll just keep going higher and higher and higher. And out of control inflation over a prolonged period of time will kill most Americans in this economy anyways. So it's better just to have a 1 or 2 year recession, a short-term recession, you know what I mean, which would be like 1, 2, maybe 3 years. It's better to experience that and go through that. It's better to pay that price up front right here, right now, than it is to allow inflation just to run wild and run rampant and basically keep going higher and higher forever, especially when it comes to those people who lived on fixed income. So when he came out in April of 2022 and said those words at his press conference, for those of you guys who were paying attention to the stock market back then, you guys remember the markets basically crashed back in April, May, and June of 2022. Stock market was going down. Bitcoin was in free fall. I think that's when Bitcoin fell from like 48K down to like 28,000. Bitcoin dropped like 20,000 in like 2 months, right? Crypto was getting annihilated. Altcoins were falling off a fucking cliff, going into the depths of hell. NFTs were getting fucking annihilated. I can't believe people are still buying those. The meme stocks were fucking, you know what I mean, getting destroyed, even though I can't believe, those things even existed to begin with. But, it makes sense in hindsight. And real estate market, right? The housing market started to collapse. Well, not collapse, but it started to come down in a hard, meaningful way because mortgage rates just kept climbing higher and higher and higher. And then all of a sudden, even though the real estate market didn't necessarily crash, a lot of real estate agents saw their bank accounts crash. And that's why I think you're seeing so much pain in the real estate community right now. It's not because asset prices or housing prices are going lower. It's because there's not a lot of transactions being made right now. And if anything, we still have more real estate agents in the market than we actually need right now. And again, shout out to my man Sherwin. Me and him talk about this, on a day-to-day basis. But once again, one of the things, he always says is, don't ever forget, Miguel, 90% of real estate is always sold by the top 10% of agents. So those top 10% of agents in any market are basically dominating most of the sales in that market anyways. So really the bottom 90% of agents are the ones fighting for like the scraps and bones that are left over in any market. You know what I mean? Like top 10% of real estate agents really do the bulk of the sales in any given market. So now that transactions are slowing down and there's less and less homes on the market because nobody really wants to sell their home if they know they're going to get lowballed out the ass, you know what I mean? And a lot of entry-level buyers in particular are basically priced out of the market, and a lot of institutions just aren't investing as much money as they used to in this, real estate market. There's not a lot of transactions to be had. There's not a lot of, buys and sells being made. You know what I mean? Compared to 2020, 2021. But we still have just as many real estate agents as ever in some markets. And so that's why most of the pain is really being done, at the real estate agent level, or in some cases the construction worker level, because now there's a lot of home builders that are just refusing to build any homes right now because they're waiting to see what happens with interest rates. They're waiting to see what happens with mortgage rates. And they're definitely damn sure trying to make sure, they understand what's about to happen to this economy. Because if you're a home builder, you don't really have any incentive in building homes right now if you think that the unemployment rate is going to skyrocket and the economy is about to crash. You probably don't want to be building homes in that environment. You want to wait until, you have a better picture of things, and you want to wait until the economy is up, in a rebound and people are getting hired again and people have jobs again. And more importantly, people have good paying jobs again and mortgage rates are going lower again. So now a lot of home builders are basically stuck on the sidelines saying, I'm not sure I really want any part of this right now. So there's still home builders that are building homes, in certain markets. But even then, they're not building as many homes, or they're being more cautious when it comes to building homes, right? Because there's a lot of, lending tightening that's happening right now in the country, and a lot of people are just pulling back everywhere. Small, medium, and large-sized businesses are, tightening down the hatchet everywhere. And a lot of these regional banks aren't giving as much money as they used to small businesses who really need it right now, because of all this credit tightening. So anyways, long story short, it really comes back down to, is the Fed really willing to risk it in order to kill inflation? And in my estimation, the answer is yes. because I think they understand that, well, not understand. I think it is their definite opinion, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter if you agree with this, America. It's their opinion that ultimately matters at the end of the day. And in their opinion, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, it is the opinion of the Federal fucking Reserve that inflation is worse than a recession. So if sending the economy into a recession is the price that they need to pay in order to kill inflation, they are 100% willing to take it there. And I think that's why, again, in April of 2022, you started to see the market sell off. You started to see home builders slow down. You started to see credit start to tighten. You started to see Bitcoin fall off a cliff and tumble from 48,000 down to 28,000. And then everyone, was saying, we need to hold 30. We need to hold 30. Yeah, no, the fuck we didn't. You know what I mean? Altcoins started to bleed out again. NFTs were getting annihilated. There was a lot of asset classes that started to get destroyed last summer in April, May, and June of 2022. And then I think at that point, I think around June, July, that's when the market started to rebalance. That's when the stock market started to rally. And that's when the stock market started to go up again. Because after it started to tumble and it went down hard, and trust me, it went down hard as fuck in the stock market, we started to see a late summer, early fall kind of rally back in June, July, and August of 2022. And at that point, that was the market saying, you know what, enough is enough. I know the Federal Reserve just told us back in April that they're willing to send us into a recession in the name of killing inflation, but ¿sabes qué? We don't believe you. We don't believe that you have the fucking cojones to go through with this. We don't think you have the balls necessary to go through with this. We don't think you got the fucking stomach for this. We don't think you have what it takes, Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve, to keep your finger on the trigger and to pull and squeeze the motherfucking trigger and actually send us into a recession. Because you might say you're willing to do that, but that doesn't mean the Biden administration will let you do that. That doesn't mean Congress and the Senate will allow you to do that. That doesn't mean you actually have the authority and the power to go through with that. So we understand what you're saying. We understand where you're coming from. We understand your perspective on all this. We just don't think you either have the power or we don't think you have the balls to go through with this. So the market started to rally back in June, July, and August of 2022. And when that happened, that was basically the markets trying to tell the Federal Reserve, we're basically playing chicken with you. We're calling you bluff. We're calling you out. We don't think that you're willing to do this. And then in August of 2022, when that started to happen, guess what else happened? Inflation started to go higher again. And when inflation started to go higher again because the markets were going higher again, Jay Powell had to come back out in August of 2022 and said, hey, bitches, I ain't done with you yet. We ain't through. This ain't over. Better bring that ass back here. And he started to whoop that motherfucking ass. One more time. Started to whoop the market's ass. And in August of 2022, Jay Powell came out and he saw that rally. He saw that epic fucking run up going into the next FOMC meeting. And he was looking around and the market was like, nah, we're calling your bluff, homie. And and Jay Powell looked at that and the Federal Reserve board members looked at that and they were like, what in the fuck is going on here? We told you, we will not stop raising interest rates and we damn sure ain't going to start to lower interest rates until inflation is down below 2%. And not only below 2%, we're not even going to consider a pivot until it stays below 2%. And I'll get to why that's important in a minute. But that was basically the mark. Jay Powell came out and he whooped that ass. And not only did he raise interest rates one more time, I think that was his last 75 basis point, or maybe it was a 50, something like that. But he raised interest rates. And then on top of that, he said, look, there is no Fed pivot. There is no pause coming soon. There is only going to be more and more and more and more interest rate hikes for that ass. And then the markets came down hard and heavy back in September, October, and November of 2022. The markets were tanking. Otra vez started to come down again, started to get beat down again, and started to get smashed to the motherfucking ground. And guess what else went with it? Bitcoin, crypto, altcoins, real estate, NFTs, you fucking name it. Every asset class on earth was getting destroyed again because the Fed made it clear. Not only A, are we willing to send this economy into a recession in the name of killing inflation because we think inflation is worse than a recession, but B, we're not even going to consider a pause or a pivot until inflation not only goes beneath 2%, but stays below 2%. Because what the Fed does not want to do, and this is why it's important, is they don't want to do what Paul Volcker did back in the 70s. They don't want to find themselves in a situation where they get inflation down to a target point, and then all of a sudden they said, okay, look, inflation's down at 2.5%, 3%. That's not bad. We're pretty much halfway there. It's okay, guys. I think we've done enough. I think it's all okay. It's rainbows and unicorns. I think we can go outside again. You know, we brought inflation down. Yay! And then Paul Volcker, basically, what's the word? Volcker basically prematurely ended up doing a pause and a pivot back in the 70s. And when he ended up doing a pause and a pivot too soon or too early, because inflation had came down meaningfully back then, the moment he announced a pause, the moment he announced a pivot, guess what happened? Inflation came soaring back again. The stock market exploded again. Asset prices were going through the roof again. And everyone started going out and spending money again. And then all of a sudden, here we are 2-3 years later, and inflation goes back to where it fucking was. Stock market's going higher. Bitcoin, if it existed back then, would have been going higher. Asset prices were fucking going up to the right. Everyone was out there spending money. People were getting hired again. The job market was strong again. Consumers were spending again. Businesses were hiring again. The economy was booming and busting again. Everyone's fucking celebrating and partying again. And then inflation starts coming off the ground and it starts pumping its chest again. And then everyone was looking at Volcker back then like, bro, what the fuck did you just do? Why didn't you wait just a little bit longer? Why did you pause and pivot too fucking soon? Why, Volcker, why? And then Volcker had to come back out and said, hell no. Y'all not about to embarrass me. You're not about to make a fool out of me. You ain't about to make me look like no fucking baboso. Hell no. So what did Volcker do back in the 70s? He came back to the house, grabbed his fucking belt and said, nah, fuck this. That beatdown didn't work last time. So he went into the closet, grabbed the shotgun and said, now I'm really coming for that ass. Now I am set on killing inflation. Now I have no choice but to destroy the economy, destroy the consumer, and destroy demand by the consumer in order to kill inflation once and for all. This ain't no Friday the 13th. I can't let you just keep coming back alive again and back alive again. I need you to kill you permanently. Because if I do not, then the average American who lives paycheck to paycheck can barely afford to pay their bills on time, barely afford to pay the rent on time, barely afford to buy enough groceries and food for his family to eat every single week. The people who are living on Social Security, Medi-Cal, Medicare, right? The people who are living on fixed income and barely have enough money, to buy food to eat. Those are the people who, by the way, happen to be the most common voter in this country, and who are the most common voter in the country is the one who's bitching about inflation the most in this country. Not to make it political, but it is what it is, right? They're the ones who are struggling the most. They're the ones being affected the most, and they're the ones who are pissed off the most. So he's got to rescue them. He's got to save them. Not just because morally and financially that's the right thing to do, but politically. You got to help out the most common voter. Who's the most common voter? Old people. How do old people survive? Social Security, Medi-Cal, Medicaid. We can't pretend like all the old people in this country are millionaires. They're not. Most old people in this country are like barely surviving paycheck to paycheck right now. You know, that's why they live in like senior homes and senior centers. You know what I mean? And when you go into like Mexican culture, it's like, you know, they all live with their grandchildren now. Somebody has to take care of them, right? So those are the people who are most deeply affected and impacted by higher and higher inflation in the economy. They can't survive this. They can't. They barely have enough money to buy food to eat. For crying out loud, like they're the ones who are the most disproportionately impacted. And they happen to be the most common voter. Again, hate to make it politically, but it is what it is, right? So with that being said, Paul Volcker had to come back out in the second half of the 70s and he said, damn, man, we did all this work with higher and higher and higher interest rate increases. And guess what happened? Just when we thought we were at the finish line, just when we started celebrating, just when we thought we fucking nailed this motherfucker to the ground, we ended up doing a pause and a pivot too fucking early. And inflation came roaring back in the 70s. The stock market went up, housing market went up, right? Asset prices went up. But so did the cost of everything in the economy go up. And then he had to come back out and said, never mind, no more rate cuts, no more rate decrease, no more of that shit, no more fucking QE. Let's go back to tightening. Let's go back to doing interest rate increase. And let's go back to tighten monetary and fiscal policy. And they ended up doing more rate increase and more rate increase and more rate increase. And then you know what happened? The stock market ended up coming down again. Asset prices ended up crashing again. Unemployment rate ended up skyrocketing again. Businesses were getting destroyed and annihilated again. The middle class was getting brought down to their knees again. And everyone was feeling the impact of too many fucking rate hikes again. And because he didn't want to pause and pivot too early again, who would? He can't risk that shit for a third time, right? So guess what he does? He ends up overdoing it. And he basically forces this economy into a recession. He forces this economy into an economic collapse. He not only puts this economy into an economic downturn, he fucking crashes this economy. He crashes the plane into the fucking ground. But guess what he did in the end? He killed inflation. And a lot of people look back at that and they say, wow, Volcker really did his best to kill inflation without killing the economy. But even he couldn't fucking do it. The only way he can kill inflation was by starting a recession. And whether people like it or not, it worked. Inflation came down, demand came down, the economy slowed down. A lot of people were some people were more disproportionately impacted than others. But the people who, benefited the most were the people who were living on fixed income, the people who were living paycheck to paycheck. Because at the end of the day, they were the ones who barely had enough money to afford food to eat. Some of them ended up losing their jobs, yes. But the ones who didn't were able to finally afford a better life again. And they were able to afford their bills again. And they were able to buy groceries again. And those people end up being the most common voters anyways. So with all that being said, am I saying what Volcker did was right in the 70s? Not really. But I understand it. I think if he can go back and do it again, he would have. But back then, nobody knew that inflation would come soaring back the moment that the Fed announces a Fed pivot or a Fed pause. So a lot of people want to point out that, he ended up doing the pause and pivot too soon. Yeah, that's true. But back then, nobody knew that was going to happen. Especially not to that degree. I mean, the degree in which inflation came roaring back was hypersonic. Nobody could have predicted that shit, especially back then, using their antiquated fucking knowledge and textbooks. You know what I mean? And that's no hit on them. It just is what it is. They didn't have as much information back then as we do today, right? So let's be fair about this process. But the point is, that's what Volcker did in the 70s. That's what he thought was right. That was his mistake. And that was his lesson to the future board members of the Federal Reserve. So now we fast forward till today, to 2022 and 2023. The leader of the Federal Reserve today is Jay Powell. Jay Powell is a student of Volcker. Volcker was his mentor. Volcker was his idol. Volcker was his hero. Because Jay Powell believes Volcker did the right thing back then. And Jay Powell believes that Volcker did his best and he was able to learn a big lesson from his failures and his mistakes back then. And being a student of history, being someone who looked up to him and, you know what I mean, like really remembers Volcker in his heyday, I think Powell is now basically using the same formula. He's following the same textbook. He's using the same blueprint right now. The only difference is he's going to learn from his mentor's mistakes. He's going to learn from his hero's failure. He's going to learn from where his idol fucked up the most. And he's not going to pause and pivot too soon. And so now that brings us into February, March, and April of 2023. The stock market once again starts off the year to an amazing pump, an amazing rally. The economy is looking strong. The real estate market, seems resilient right now. The consumer demand is picking up again right now. A lot of economists are worried because most of the spending in this economy is what? Credit card right now. The middle class is pulling equity out of their homes right now. Poor people are maxing out credit cards and pulling loans out right now. And rich people just don't give a fuck right now. Economy's had a great start to the new year. Stock market's been on a tear, massive rally, led by big mega cap tech and the biggest 5-10 companies in the world right now. Bitcoin has almost doubled for the year right now from 16,000 to 29,000. I mean, Dios mío, this thing's been on a tear. Absolutely fucking biblical. Altcoins are started to pump again. NFTs are being sold again. Meme stocks are fucking running again. And I think Jay Powell's looking at this and say, damn, bro, really? Again? I thought I was clear black last year in April of 2022. I thought I made my fucking game plan really transparent and open to everyone. Then you guys wanted to have a rally back in late June, July, and August. And I had to come in there and shut that shit down. Pronto, immediately, quick, fast, and in a motherfucking hurry. And then here we are again. In January, February, March, April, going into May of 2023. And once again, otra vez, here we go. And the market, the economy, and the consumer is still strong again. And I think that's why a lot of these leading indicators that track inflation are telling you that inflation is starting to tick up again. And I think this is something that the Fed is aware of. I think this is something that the Fed was probably keeping track of. And I think this is something that is going to piss them the fuck off. And so not only do I expect another 25 basis point rate increase this week, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another and another and another. Because at the end of the day, inflation is nowhere near down to 2%. But most importantly, more importantly, core inflation is not fucking going anywhere. Rent prices are still too high for the average American. Gas prices are ticking up again because the Saudis are cutting production in half again. Administration is not going to help out anytime soon unless they unload more oil from the Key Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR. But that SPR is now at the lowest level since the 1970s and 60s. So if they unload any more oil from the SPR, which is like our oil savings account, then we're going to not only be at historical lows, we're going to be at all-time lows. That can't last forever. So at some point we're going to have to refill it. And since we're not buying oil from Chinese, and we're not buying oil from the Russians, that means the only other place we can get the oil from that we need in this country is going to be from the Saudis, who are charging us a bigger and bigger premium by the fucking week. So guess what's going to mean for gas prices and oil prices in this country? It's going to go higher and higher and higher. What's that going to mean for core inflation? It's going to go higher and higher and higher. And what's that eventually going to turn out to be for interest rate hikes? They're going to go higher and higher and higher. And I think this is something that really frustrates most economists in this country. Because, to be honest, I think most economists agree that the Fed and their rate increases are fucking useless. And the reason they're useless, the reason they're dumb and stupid, is because none of these interest rate hikes are actually going to fix the root cause of inflation. The root cause of inflation is we don't have enough supply in this market. The root cause of inflation is we don't have enough manufacturing in this country. The root cause of inflation is we don't build enough in this country. And so when you look at anything from the housing market and the fact that there's not enough homes for sale, and that's actually the bigger issue on what's going on, it's not that home prices are too expensive, is that we don't have enough inventory. We don't have enough supply. There's not enough homes for all these people living in this country, especially right now. We need to build more fucking homes, not just force the middle class to sell theirs. That's fucking dumb. Oil prices are still too high. We should be producing more oil. We should be energy independent. We shouldn't always be on our hands and knees begging more oil from the Saudis, begging for more oil from the Russians, begging more oil from the Chinese. We should be energy independent and just producing our own. Oh, but we can't because of climate change and global warming. Okay, so now here we are with higher and higher gas prices this summer again. Better get used to it. You know, we don't have enough inventory in this country. We don't have enough this. We don't have enough that. So we're always going to other countries, always being dependent on other countries like China, Taiwan, the list goes on, because that's where labor prices are the most affordable for a lot of these big, large businesses. But every time we get supply chain issues, every time we face low inventory issues, every time we have fucking, global supply hiccups, now all of a sudden there's less supply for us. Now all of a sudden there's less inventory for us. Now all of a sudden there's less products inside of our stores for us. And then guess what happens to prices? They go higher and higher and higher. So the economists understand what the Fed is trying to do. Same thing that they did in the 70s, but they're trying to learn from that mistake and they don't want to pause and pivot too soon. But in the grand scheme of things, you're not actually fixing the root cause of inflation. The root cause of inflation is we need more stuff in this market. And instead of just trying to murder the middle class and get them to go living on their hands and knees paycheck to paycheck again, how about we just have more jobs in this country? How about we do this? How about we do that? You know what I mean? A lot of the things that they're trying to fix with all of these rate hikes aren't actually fixing anything. If anything, it's just making things worse. And I think that's what really frustrates and pisses off a lot of economists. And I think that finally brings us to the battle of the bulls and the bears. And I'm going to make one more final clip on this, probably later on this week. Probably going to release it Thursday or Friday, maybe early next week, maybe late this week. I'll keep you guys posted on this. But the battle of the bulls and the bears from the very beginning has not been about what the Fed should do with all of the interest rate increase. The battle of the bulls and the bears is about what the Fed will do as opposed to what they should do. Because let me make this clear for everyone, listening to this. The bulls and the bears agree. The Fed should not be doing a rate increase. The Fed should be doing a rate decrease if they wanted to avoid a recession. Because again, every leading economic indicator in U.S. history is flashing red and motherfucking screaming that there is going to be a recession coming soon. And the longer it takes the Fed to pause, the longer it takes the Fed to pivot, the longer the recession will last, and the more severe, the more deadly, and the more bloody it will become. So if the Fed wanted to avoid a U.S. recession, they need to pivot immediately. So that's what the Fed should do. But I think that's what they won't do. I don't think that's what they will do. I think they're willing, again, like they told us 12 months ago in April of last year, in April of 2022, that they're willing to pay that price if that's what it takes to kill the inflation, because that's what Volcker did, and that's how they solved inflation back in the 70s. And so this goes back to, again, bulls of the bears isn't about what the Fed should do. I don't think they should send us into a recession in order to kill inflation. but I understand why. I understand their perspective, and I understand their opinion, even if I disagree with it. And so now the battle of the bulls is about what they will do. I think the bulls are saying that either A, the Fed doesn't have the balls for this, or B, you know what I mean, that this is all bark, all talk, and they don't have the bite for this. One of the two. And what I'm here to tell you is yes, the fuck they do. They have all the ammunition and they're not afraid to use it. And I think this is why they will not only continue to do another rate increase, this is why I don't think they're going to pause or pivot anytime soon. Now, going to the pause, I am starting to believe that they will pause in the summer or maybe early fall. But I think this is something that Powell is going to be very cautious of. Because while the bulls will say the best thing for the marketplace is for the Fed to pause on any more further interest rate increase, I think the bears will say that's actually the worst thing they can do. Because I think, again, Powell being a student of history, he realizes that the motherfucking moment this Federal Reserve announces a pause on interest rate increases, what do you think is going to happen to the stock market? What do you think is going to happen to crypto? What do you think is going to happen with Bitcoin and altcoins and meme stocks and real estate and, you know, all these asset prices in this country? What do you think is going to happen in this economy, in this global marketplace, the moment the Fed announces they're going to pause and they're not going to do any more interest rate increases? What do you think will happen? The stock market's going to rally. The consumer is going to feel like demand is strong. Like everyone is going to go back to spending money again. Because that's exactly what they did in the motherfucking 70s. Real estate agents are going to be making money again. Home builders are going to be building again. Construction workers are going to have more work than ever again. You know, people are going to go out shopping. They're going to go traveling. They're going to go to all these resorts. They're going to be in the clubs here in Vegas. They're going to be popping bottles in the strip club. Everybody's going to be shaking that ass and titties. Everyone's going to go to Six Flags and Knott's Berry Farm and Disneyland. And everyone's going to take road trips. And everyone's going to have family vacations. And everyone's going to be spending money again soon, buying shit they don't need again soon. Everybody's going to have a party up in here, right? Because stock market's going to explode, which means your 401k is going to explode, your Roth IRA is going to explode, your pension fund's going to explode, all these bank accounts are going to fucking, you know what I mean, just be active out the ass. Everyone's going to be swipe, swipe, tap, tap, Visa, MasterCard, Visa, MasterCard, Visa, MasterCard, buy more fucking Bitcoin. Oh my God, it's about to be a fucking party up in here when it comes to asset prices the moment the Fed announces a pause coming soon. And what do you think is going to happen to inflation when that happens? It's going to come back soaring back again soon. And then what's that going to mean for the Fed? It's going to mean that they fucked up. It's going to mean that they're going to have to go back to work again soon. And it's going to mean that all the work they've done for almost a year now was basically wiped out with one fucking word. Pause. And I think Jay Powell knows this. I think he understands this better than most. And so that's why I'm kind of not worried, but I'm very cautious about thinking that he's actually going to do a pause soon. Because leading indicators already say that inflation is ticking up again. The Fed hasn't even stopped doing rate increases, and inflation's already ticking up again, just based on the fucking just the hopes and dreams that the Fed is going to do a pause this summer. Just based on speculation, hearsay, whispers in the grapevine, based on the bond market expectations, because the bond market assumes that the Fed doesn't have the balls for this. They don't have what it takes to send us into a recession. Therefore, the bond market is basically predicting that the Fed's going to start to do a pivot soon and start doing a bunch of rate cuts soon. Because they don't think that they have the balls to do what Volcker did in the 70s. They ain't got the heart for this. There's no political appetite for this. That's why the bond market is screaming pivot, pivot, pivot. Meanwhile, the Fed's like, no, we actually do have the balls to do what Volcker did. And if anything, Jay Powell wants to do exactly what Volcker did because that's his idol. That's his hero. That was his fucking mentor. So that's where you kind of have this disconnect in the marketplace. And this is why a lot of economists are concerned. Because a lot of the economists are like, damn, man, Volcker was your idol. He was your mentor. He was your hero. And he basically killed inflation by destroying fucking consumers nationwide. And he was looked at as a fucking, you know what I mean? Like one of the greatest because of what he did to inflation, being able to finally kill it. You know what I mean? Even though it made a fucking historical comeback, but almost to new all-time highs. Like, wow, Volcker really did it. You know what I mean? It took him 2 tries, but fuck it, he fucking did it. He accomplished his goal. He completed the mission. He finished his task. And I think Jay Powell wants to be able to say he did the same thing. But I think Jay Powell wants to do it in one shot, one kill, straight to the fucking head. And that's why I'm not so sure that Powell wants to be put in that same situation. I'm not sure he wants to be faced with the same predicament of, oh my gosh, the economy's slowing down, the economy's falling off a cliff, consumer demand is, crumbling, all these leading, economic indicators throughout history are flashing red, screaming red, begging fucking mercy. I don't think he wants to be the guy that once again fucked up and made the same mistakes as his idol. I think he wants to be able to say he learned from his idol and was able to avoid the mistakes that he made in the past by learning from history. And that's why I'm not really so sure he's going to do a pause this summer. I think he should. I think he will. I think it's probably more likely than not. But the problem is, if he does do a pause, right? And I know this is a really big if. But if he does do a pause, if inflation's already starting to tick up again, especially as it pertains to gas prices, if he ends up doing a pause in June, then yeah, stock market's going to rally, crypto's going to rally, Bitcoin's going to pump, real estate's going to go kaboom, because then mortgage rates are basically going to front load this and start to go down heavy, and mortgage rates could probably come back down to 5% again if he announces a pause this summer, which means housing market's going to be on fire this summer, which means real estate agents are going to be making money this summer, which means spending's going to be out of control again this summer. Like, you can see the cascading effect if he announces a pause. He don't even got to do a pivot soon. Just by saying the word pause, this economy is going to start to go kaboom soon. But then inflation will skyrocket again soon. And it's already ticking up again. Again, he hasn't even announced a pause. He hasn't even said anything about a pause. He hasn't even fucking talked about doing a pause. And inflation's already ticking up again because it's waiting for the pause. So what do you think's going to happen when he officially does it? Oh, inflation's about to go through the roof one more time. And Jay Powell's going to come back out and have to whoop that ass just like his mentor, Paul. Paul Volcker's going to come back out. He's going to have to destroy this economy one more time. Sorry for my bad singing, but you guys get the point. You guys understand the message. That's my opinions and thoughts on this stock market and crypto and Bitcoin at large. Is I just don't. I can see both sides, but my worry is that he does a pause. That's actually my real worry, because if he does a pause this summer in June, yeah, the bulls are going to be happy. I'm probably going to flip and go long, and I'm going to buy all the most speculative asset classes on earth. And I'm not just talking about Bitcoin. Shit, motherfucker, I'm going to be investing in Dogecoin, Shibu, fucking, cryptos, fucking penny stocks, OTCs. All that shit's going to be booming this summer. If he announces a pause, it's not just going to be big mega cap tech like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Tesla that ends up running and gunning. It's going to be all asset classes. And the asset classes that are going to end up exploding the most are going to be the ones who are like the most speculative the most. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like the most speculative shit that ends up running the most. So in that kind of environment, if he ends up announcing a pause, oh yeah, you could best believe the general's going full crypto. And I know they say you never go full retard, but yes, the fuck I is. I'm going to go full crypto. I'm going to go all in Bitcoin. I'm going, all the OTCs, the SPACs, the penny stock crap, all of that shit. I'm putting my money in everything because the most speculative, stupid shit is going to be the ones that go up the most the moment he announces a pause. So I'm going to keep my fingers on the trigger this summer. And yeah, I'm not going to be recording any clips for the podcast. Yeah, I'm going to be out traveling this summer. Yeah, I'm going to be out there enjoying my best life this summer. But I got my soldiers waiting. I got my soldiers on the sidelines. I got my soldiers fucking paying attention. And I'm going to be waiting for that June Fed meeting. And in June, when he comes out on the next Fed meeting, if he announces anything that sounds like a pause, me and my VIPs, we're going to be pulling the trigger all summer. And we're going to make money watching this, we're going to make money watching asset prices skyrocket. And we're going to play it on the upside and we're going to play it back down on the downside again. Because if he ends up doing the pause and inflation, asset prices skyrocket, they're going to take inflation along with it. And inflation is going to end up going back up again. And all of the work they've done for the last 12 months to bring down inflation is going to be for nothing because inflation is going to end up just pulling back up again. And that's why I think he should not do a pause this summer. That's why I think he should continue to do more rate hikes this summer. Because he needs to send a clear, unequivalent, undisputed message to the stock market and to all asset prices. I'm not going to stop until inflation goes below 2%. And even when it goes below 2%, I'm not going to make the mistake that Volcker did, my mentor did. I'm not going to pivot too soon. I'm not going to pivot too early. And I'm not going to pivot prematurely. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be methodical. And I'm going to be surgical when it comes to announcing any sort of pause and any kind of pivot. Because I don't want to do is make the same mistakes as my mentor. I want to learn from the mistakes of my mentor, which means I'm not going to pause or pivot too soon. If anything, I'm going to pause and pivot too late. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen. That's exactly what I think is going to take place. I think his constant rate hikes are going to undeniably send this economy into not just a mild recession, but I do think it's going to end up being severe. Because the longer he takes to pause, the longer he takes to pivot, the longer the recession will become and the more severe it will be. And because of that, I no longer believe it's going to be a mild recession. I was of the opinion that it was going to be a mild recession for rich people and a severe recession for poor people and a deep recession for middle class people. I've changed my mind. I'm starting to believe it's going to be a mass recession for all people. Because the amount of pain he's going to have to inflict on the economy, if he's serious about bringing down inflation to 2%, which I know some people say is impossible now, and inflation's here to stay, because again, the root cause of inflation is never going to go away because of the way our infrastructure is set up today. But nonetheless, if he is 100% committed to bringing down inflation to sub 2% and keeping down inflation sub 2%, then the amount of pain, the amount of bloodshed, and the amount of fucking chaos he's going to have to cause in the marketplace to accomplish this mission, to accomplish this feat, to complete his fucking task, is going to be biblical. And it's not just going to hurt the poor and the middle class. It's going to destroy fucking everyone and everybody. But I think that's what is going to be what it has to take in order for him to actually accomplish this impossible mission. But I think he's serious. I think he's steadfast and committed. And I think he's willing to fucking take it there. So with that being said, I expect another 25 this week. But I'm not sure we see a pause or a pivot. And if we do, that actually won't be a good thing. That just means we're going to get hit harder on the second time around. If anything, if he wants to really kill it with one shot, one kill, I think he needs to keep pulling his finger on the trigger, because inflation ain't going away. It feels more and more like inflation's here to stay. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, my orders remain the same. Be smart, be patient, be ready. And most importantly, stop spending your money on stupid ass shit. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the one, the only, the motherfucking general. Magallon!